But why would bringing it by pipeline instead of truck lower the price?
Because it's more efficient.
I've never read that before. Where are you getting that?
From people that know about this and people that know that when you have that pipeline open, it's better for increasing the supply, as well as increasing our own domestic production along with that.
Okay. Do you have any citations on that? Because I've never heard that.
What I do have a citation on is that gas prices are too high, and we need to
I agree. I agree. Okay.
In today's video, David Pakman absolutely destroys John Gibbs in a heated debate about Trump's first term and what his second term could look like. And let's be real, Trump's return has already been a wild ride. He renamed the Gulf of Mexico, gave Elon Musk access to the treasury system, promised to lower prices but somehow made eggs more expensive, and instead of solving the Gaza conflict, he's out here talking about turning it into a luxury resort. Yeah, you really can't make this stuff up. This debate might be an old clip, but watching it now, it's pretty clear what we can expect from Trump 2.0. And as usual, debating a right-winger like John Gibbs is like talking to a brick wall. Facts just don't seem to get through. So let's dive in and watch how David Pakman shuts down John Gibbs in this heated debate.
I'm finding myself at a bit of a logjam because we seem to not even be able to agree on the kind of basic facts. Let's try a different topic altogether and see if maybe we can make some headway. Who's the president of the United States right now?
Joe Biden is certainly the sitting president, but it looks like President Trump likely won the election. Here's a couple of facts for you, David. One, President Trump got more votes the second time than he got the first time. There's no such thing in American history of a president getting more votes the second time and then losing. It doesn't exist. The second thing we know that's a fact is President Trump won the bellwether counties. And when you win a bellwether county, you win the presidency with 100% predictability. President Trump won those, yet still lost. Both of those are mathematically impossible. So that seems to indicate very strongly that there is some irregularities in the election results. So, you know, people are concerned about this, rightfully so. And so we really got to the bottom of it, as well as increase our election integrity going forward. If we don't have secure elections, we don't have fair elections, you don't have a democracy. So this is a really big issue we've got to address.
Right. Well, I agree with your conclusion. We have to have secure elections. You said that something is an impossibility. And what you said was an impossibility is if you get more votes the second time than the first, historically, you win. Am I understanding that assessment?
Right. Yes.
That's right. Okay. Have you ever seen things happen for the first time in your life, John?
Of course.
Okay. And so something happened for the first time in November of 2020. Is that fair to say? We'll get to whether it happened fairly. Let's not jump ahead, but arguably something happened for the first time in November of 2020, which is a sitting president got more votes and still lost. Fair. It was the first time that happened.
Well, there's different categories of things that happen for the first time.
Okay.
There's getting into a car accident for the first time.
Okay.
Well, guess what? Other people get into car accidents all the time, so we know that it's something that happens.
Mm-hmm.
You're talking about getting more votes the second time than you got the first time. That's something that never happens. And so that's a different category. That's something that is almost certainly mathematically impossible.
Okay.
So it's not the same category as other things that happen for the first time.
So let me give you an example of something else during the Trump presidency that happened for the first time. And then let's see if we can agree and then extrapolate from that. The average approval rating for Donald Trump during his 4 years was the lowest of any president in the modern era. Would you agree with that? And this is no matter, even if you look at a right-leaning pollster like Rasmussen, which had Trump higher, still, on average, Trump's approval was the lowest of any president in the modern era. Can we agree on that fact?
I might double check that, but let's assume just for argument's sake.
Let's assume it's fair enough. So my suggestion to you as a thinking man, well-educated, everything, we're talking at high level here, given that Trump's polling was the lowest of any president in the modern era, which had never, it was unprecedented low, isn't it also possible that you would see an unprecedented result in the election? Is that possible? Is it possible theoretically?
No, it's not possible for a president to get 20% more votes than they got the first time than still lose.
Pause. If you're enjoying this video so far, please consider hitting that like button and subscribe. It helps out the channel a lot. Now, John is out here recycling the same tired talking points that just doesn't hold up. He claims that Trump's election loss was mathematically impossible because he got more votes the second time around. But Pakman, as usual, isn't letting him slide. with that nonsense. Just because something hasn't happened before doesn't make it impossible. Things happen for the first time all the time, especially when you were the most unpopular president in modern history. John also tries to push the idea that the Keystone Pipeline would have magically lowered gas prices, which is just not true. The pipeline wasn't even operational when Biden revoked its permit. And oil companies decide gas prices based on global markets, not a single pipeline. But facts don't seem to matter when you're trying to defend Trump's failures.
But you didn't answer the question,
Barack Obama got 3.5 million less votes the second time than the first time. He still won.
Okay.
So you're really looking at just pure impossibilities here.
So you're saying that there's lots of things that happened for the first time during the Trump presidency, but this one thing, Trump getting more votes and losing, that one's not possible.
That's correct, because like I said, there are different categories of things that happen for the first time.
Wow.
There's some things that happen for the first time that are plausible. There's some that are not.
Why haven't any courts found any merit to the 63 different 2020 election-related complaints that have been brought to them? Many of them Trump-appointed judges. Why is it?
Because the Democrats had their legal game going in a really good way, I must say. Even though what they're working for was not good, they had people like Mark Elias in charge of it, and they did a good job of it. Our side was slow to react, slow to respond, and did not take this issue seriously enough before the election. That's just a sad fact. I wish it weren't true. So that's the answer to your question there.
But if there were merit, wouldn't a Trump-appointed judge say, there's merit here, let's proceed?
Well, if you look at our side leading up to the election, when it comes to election integrity, didn't prepare well enough. That's just a sad fact of it. So
how could you have been more prepared? There was an army of hundreds of lawyers, and Trump said for 6 months it was going to be rigged. How could you have been? What could have been done to be more prepared?
A whole lot more. You need to have action at the state level. You need to have litigation.
They did.
Watching, there was not nearly enough of that going on. You need to have poll watchers, you need to have poll challengers signed up. Look in Virginia, for example, at Governor Youngkin's election. Typically in an election in Virginia, Republicans have coverage at 20% of the precincts as poll watchers. But when Governor Youngkin won, Republicans had 90% coverage at the precincts. That's a concrete example of something that the Republicans did that was smart and that made an impact on the election. And what I'm saying and I'm suggesting here is that we didn't have enough of that leading up to the 2020 election, which is why you saw some of the results you did. And that carries over, David, as well to the legal issues where there's not enough preparation, very sadly. So, I think we've got to bring our A game next time.
Now, John still argues that Trump should have won in 2020 simply because he got more votes than in 2016. But Pakman shuts that down quickly. Again, just because something hasn't happened before doesn't mean it's mathematically impossible. Elections are based on competition, not just getting more votes than last time. Biden's also got way more votes than Obama did, but no one's calling that suspicious. The reality, Trump was historically unpopular. His approval rating was the lowest of any modern president, and his erratic leadership alienated key demographics. Suburban voters swung heavily towards Biden, tired of Trump's chaos. Independents, a crucial swing group, shifted away from him, especially after his disastrous COVID-19 response. Even within his own party, some lifelong Republicans deflected, either voting for Biden or staying home because they couldn't stomach another 4 years of scandals, corruption, and just incompetence.
Why do you think that in Arizona, the audit that was done extended Joe Biden's lead?
I have to go look at that. A lot of these audits, they simply recounted the existing ballots, which is not what you do. You want to go through and do a more thorough look to see which ones are valid and which ones are not, et cetera. But that being said, I need to go back and read the details of that to find out exactly what happened. But yeah, I mean, we really have got to make sure we increase our election integrity. People are losing faith in the system. There are people saying they're not going to vote anymore because of what happened. So we really have got to restore the public's confidence in our election system.
You know, the polling shows that the American people are actually very confident in our election systems. It's just some Trumpists that aren't. But what indicator are you seeing that at the national level, Americans aren't confident? Because I just looked at polling and Americans seem very confident.
And I've looked at polling that says the opposite.
Uh-huh.
Something like over half of all people believe that the 2020 election results were not legitimate. Even among
That's not true.
independents, the number I believe was over 50%.
No.
And among Democrats, the number was something like in 30 to 40% range. So there's a very, very significant number of people that believe that, unfortunately, there were real irregularities in the 2020 election. And that's why we've got to restore the public's confidence in the election process.
I mean, I think, that's not true that that's what the polling is. In the immediate aftermath of the election, 57% of Trump voters believed that. That number has since declined dramatically. And right now, only about 20% of overall Americans believe that. But I think I have a different question, which is, just because of a lot of Americans believe something, does that mean we change our laws for that? What's your philosophy on that?
Well, I think you have a point there, David, that we do what's right, not based on popular opinion. But this is a nation where popular opinion does happen to be right, that there were issues. And so, like I said, the results were mathematically impossible. So we've got to look at what happened, and we've also got to make sure elections are secure going forward.
It's weird because everybody who is saying that this was a mathematical impossibility, so I'm hearing you say it. I don't know if you're familiar who Mike Lindell is. He sells pillows on television. I don't know if you've heard of him.
I've heard of him, yes.
Yeah. He says it's a mathematical impossibility. Sometimes lawyers who have no training in mathematics say it's a mathematical impossibility. But then you go to actual statisticians and they say there's nothing here that raises any red flags whatsoever. Do you think there's some reason why it's non-mathematicians that are convinced about the mathematical impossibility? I'm trying to figure that out.
I would bet that if you ask mathematicians, you will find that they will say these are highly irregular numbers, especially the two cases I cited you. So I believe that there are many who would admit that these numbers are impossible.
Okay.
Now let's talk about what this means for Trump's second term. He's already back in office and surprise, surprise, he's still obsessed with election conspiracies. His administration is already pushing for new voting restrictions, even though there is no evidence of widespread fraud. This tells us exactly where things are headed. More voter suppression, more baseless lawsuits, and more attacks on democracy. If 2020 was a preview, it looks like 2025 is shaping up to be even worse. And let's not forget Trump's priorities so far. Instead of focusing on real issues like inflation or healthcare, he's wasting time on petty revenge against political opponents and just trying to rewrite history. If Gibbs and others keep enabling this nonsense, Trump's second term will be even more chaotic than the first. The debate just proves that MAGA talking points haven't evolved at all. Just the same recycled lies, and now with even more power behind them. But this is it for today's video. I hope you have enjoyed. If you did, make sure to like, subscribe, and share your thoughts in the comment section down below.